The spacecraft shuddered and groaned, its metallic hull scorched and battered from weeks of interstellar travel. J1 Park gripped the control panel, his hands steady despite the violent atmospheric entry. Outside the small viewport, swirling, crimson winds whipped across a landscape that looked more like a nightmare than a planet. Their mission had started as a routine exploration. Now it was anything but routine. The landing was far from gentle. Metal screeched against rocky terrain, sending vibrations through the ship's interior. Hyejin Kim clutched her medical kit, her breath catching with each violent jolt. Beside her, Sungmin Lee checked the environmental readings, his fingers dancing across holographic displays that flickered with warning signals. Daehyun Choi was the first to speak. "Everyone okay?" A collective grunt of agreement was their response. As the ship's door hissed open, the alien world rushed in. The air was thick, heavy with strange minerals, and an electrifying tension that made the hair on their necks stand up. Jae-won stepped out first, his boots crunching against ground that seemed more like crystalline sand than actual earth. They didn't notice the watchers immediately. The Corral people blended perfectly with their environment. Scaled skin in shades of deep bronze and slate gray made them virtually invisible against the rocky landscape. Multiple eyes, not two, but a complex cluster that could see spectrums humans couldn't even imagine, tracked every movement of the human intruders. To the Corral, these bipedal creatures were something entirely unexpected. Their tribal elders had spoken of prophecies, of beings from beyond the stars. But these weren't the majestic, godlike figures from their ancient stories. These were indifferent, vulnerable, breakable. Jae-won checked their landing coordinates, completely unaware of the dozens of eyes studying them. Hyejin was already assessing the ship's damage, her professional demeanor unchanged by the alien surroundings. Sungmin worked on communication systems, trying to re-establish contact with their home base. And Daehyun, he was the first to notice something was watching them, a subtle movement, a reflection in a distant rock formation, something that wasn't. Quite a shadow, but definitely not natural terrain. "Guys," he whispered, "we're not alone." The Corral elder, hidden behind a complex camouflage of natural rock formations, watched with a mixture of curiosity and ancient reverence. These weren't just strangers. These were potentially the fulfillment of prophecies passed down through generations. The humans continued their work, oblivious to the cultural revolution their mere presence was about to trigger. Their technology, their movements, their very existence, would soon become something more than just a scientific expedition. To the Corral, they were about to become something far more significant, divine, mysterious, transformative, but neither the humans nor the Corral knew exactly how dramatically their worlds were about to change. The wind continued to blow. The alien landscape remained silent, and the first chapter of an extraordinary encounter was just beginning to unfold. Jae-won looked up from his damaged spacecraft, scanning the horizon. He had no idea that hundreds of eyes were already considering him, something far beyond a simple explorer. A god had just landed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The wounded warrior lay motionless, his scaled skin torn and bleeding from what looked like a brutal territorial battle. Blood seeped into the rocky ground, a testament to the harsh life of the Corral tribes. Hyejin knelt beside him, her medical kit looking like nothing more than a small metallic box to the watching. Tribal members. No one expected what would happen next. With practiced hands, she pulled out a small device that looked like a simple pen. The Corral warriors watched, a mix of fear and curiosity etching their complex facial expressions. Hyejin pressed the device against the warrior's worst wound, a deep gash that would have meant certain death in their traditional medical practices. A soft blue light pulsed. Tiny silvery particles seemed to dance across the wound. Minutes passed. The warriors held their breath. The wound began to close. Not slowly, not in days or weeks, but right before their eyes. Tissue knitted together. Blood stopped flowing. Within moments, the warrior who should have been dying sat up, completely healed. Silence erupted into chaos. The tribal elders dropped to their knees. Some began chanting, others started weeping. This was no medical treatment, this was pure magic. This was a miracle. Nearby, Sung Min was dealing with his own miraculous moment. The local water source was more poison than liquid. Generations of tribal conflicts and industrial waste had turned the stream into a toxic nightmare. No corral could drink from it. Children died. Livestock perished. His water purification system looked like a simple backpack device. When he activated it, the transformation was instant. Murky, chemical-laden water turned crystal clear. The device hummed softly, breaking down molecular structures, removing toxins, creating pure drinking water from what was essentially liquid death. The tribe watched in absolute wonder. Children who had never known clean water approached cautiously. An elder, his body marked with years of survival, dipped a traditional clay cup into the stream. He drank, then he drank again. No stomach pain, no illness, just pure, clean water. Word spread quickly through the corral tribes. These weren't just visitors. These were beings beyond their comprehension. Every small action became a potential miracle. When Jaewon stretched and accidentally knocked over a rock, tribes interpreted it as a divine gesture. When Daehyun adjusted his communication device, they saw complex ritualistic movements. The humans were completely unaware of their growing divine status. Heejin continued treating wounded warriors. Each healing became a sacred ceremony. Tribal artists began creating intricate drawings depicting her as a celestial healer. Sungmin's water purification became a spiritual technology that would change their entire civilization's understanding. Of survival. Their scientific equipment was becoming religious artifacts. Their medical treatments were transforming into mythological events, and they had no idea. The corral tribes were documenting everything, every step, every gesture, every technical action was being recorded with a reverence usually reserved for the most sacred of spiritual experiences. Gods had arrived, and they were walking among them. The most remarkable part. The humans thought they were just doing their job. They had no concept of the cultural revolution they were about to trigger. One healing, one clean water source, and an entire civilization was about to change forever. The first miracles had begun, and nobody, not the humans, not the corral, understood just how profound these moments would become. The wind blew across the alien landscape, watching, waiting, witnessing the beginning of something extraordinary. Jaewon stood before the tribal council, frustration etched across his face. He'd spent days trying to explain their simple mission, an accidental landing, a routine exploration gone wrong. But the corral elders listened with an intensity that suggested they were hearing something entirely different. "We are not gods," he said, gesturing with his hands. "We are explorers, just people." The translation device crackled. The elders exchanged knowing glances, their multiple eyes blinking in a complex rhythm that suggested deep spiritual understanding. To them, every word was a sacred proclamation. Outside the council chamber, massive stone monuments were already taking shape. Skilled corral craftsmen worked day and night, carving enormous statues that captured each crew member's likeness with stunning detail. Heejin's healing pose, Sungmin's water purification stance, Daehyun's technical precision, all transformed into larger-than-life stone tributes. The crew watched in growing disbelief. Tribe members began bringing offerings, not simple gifts, but centuries-old treasures that represented their most profound cultural memories. Intricate metalwork passed down through generations. Rare fruits from sacred groves that were typically reserved for the most important spiritual ceremonies. Daehyun picked up one of the metalwork pieces, a complex spiral design that seemed to tell an entire historical narrative through its intricate patterns. "This is incredible," he whispered to Heejin. "These are probably priceless to their culture." The irony wasn't lost on them. They had come to explore, to study. Instead, they had become living legends. Sungmin tried a different approach. He pulled out technical diagrams, tried to show their star charts, attempted to demonstrate they were simply travelers from a distant world. The tribal elders nodded solemnly, interpreting each technical drawing as a complex spiritual text. One elder approached Jaewon, presenting a ceremonial staff decorated with intricate bones and rare feathers. His gesture was one of complete submission, of ultimate respect. "We are listening to your divine teachings," the elder said through the translation device. Jaewon wanted to scream in frustration. How could he make them understand? The monuments continued to grow, massive stone structures that would dwarf anything in human architectural history. Each day, more intricate details were added. Scenes of healing, moments of technological wonder. The humans' every casual action was being immortalized in stone. Tribal children began learning a new mythology. Stories of the star beings who arrived to transform their world. Schools were being established, cultural practices were changing, an entire civilization was reorganizing itself around the humans' accidental presence. We have to do something, Hee-jin said during a quiet moment. We're completely disrupting their natural development. But nobody knew how to stop it. Their smallest actions became sacred rituals. A wave became a blessing. A technical adjustment transformed into a spiritual gesture. Their very existence was rewriting the chorale's understanding of reality. The wind blew across the alien landscape, carrying the sounds of construction, of chanting, of a civilization in the midst of a profound transformation, and the humans could only watch. Reluctant gods. Accidental saviors. Completely unaware of the revolution they were creating, the monuments continued to rise, the myths continued to grow, and nothing would ever be the same again. The discarded communication device lay on a stone altar, surrounded by the most brilliant minds of the chorale tribes. What looked like a simple piece of equipment to the human crew was now the most sacred object in their civilization. Young chorale scholars worked in shifts, studying every millimeter of the device. They didn't just want to understand it, they wanted to become it. Dae-hyun had accidentally dropped the device during a routine system check. He'd forgotten about it, thinking it was just another piece of damaged equipment. The Kerel saw something completely different, a divine blueprint of knowledge. Tribal workshops began transforming. What were once spaces for traditional crafting now looked like makeshift technology labs. Skilled metalworkers who once created ceremonial weapons now carefully dissected electronic components. Their multiple eyes, capable of seeing spectrums humans couldn't imagine, gave them unique insights into complex technological structures. The first breakthrough came unexpectedly. A young chorale engineer named Krolan managed to power up a small circuit from the communication device. When the first light blinked, the entire workshop erupted in celebration. It wasn't just a technical achievement, it was a spiritual moment. Tribes that had fought for generations now collaborated. The northern mountain clans shared resources with coastal groups. The desert tribes traded knowledge with forest communities. Everything was focused on understanding the divine technology left by their celestial visitors. Hye-jin noticed the change first. During medical treatments, chorale assistants began asking complex questions about nanite technology. Sungmin found tribal members creating rudimentary water filtration systems based on his initial designs. Their technological leap was happening at an impossible speed. What would have taken human civilization centuries was happening in months. The communication device became more than a learning tool. It became a symbol of unity. Tribes that once killed each other now shared research. Children who would have been trained as warriors were now studying technical diagrams. Educational systems transformed overnight. Jae-won watched in stunned silence. Their accidental landing was rewriting an entire civilization's trajectory. Each discarded piece of equipment became a sacred text, each technical manual a spiritual document. The humans weren't just visitors anymore, they were unknowing architects of a technological revolution. Krolan's team eventually created their first working communication prototype. It was crude, barely functional, but it represented something monumental, an entire civilization taking its first real technological steps. The device crackled to life during a massive tribal gathering. When the first transmission went through, thousands watched in complete silence. Then pure chaos of celebration erupted. They weren't just learning technology, they were transforming their entire understanding of existence. Dae-hyun's forgotten communication device had become the Rosetta Stone of an alien civilization's technological awakening. The humans remained oblivious to the depth of their impact. To them, it was just another day of exploration. To the Chiral, it was the moment everything changed. Massive stone monuments continued to rise in the background. Technical workshops buzzed with energy. A civilization was being reborn, and it all started with a simple, forgotten communication device. The wind blew across the alien landscape, carrying the sounds of a revolution, a technological awakening that would reshape everything. The morning of departure arrived with an electric silence that seemed to blanket the entire planet. Massive crowds of Chiral gathered around the landing site, their scaled skin reflecting the first light of dawn. This wasn't just a goodbye. This was a spiritual event that would be remembered for generations. Jaewon stood at the spacecraft's entrance, feeling the weight of an entire civilization's expectations. Hyejin and Sungmin prepared the final launch sequences, while Daehyun conducted last-minute equipment checks. They knew this moment was different. This wasn't just another mission conclusion. "We need to say something," Hyejin whispered, looking at the thousands of expectant faces. Jaewon nodded. The linguistic algorithm hummed to life, ready to translate every nuanced word into the complex language of the Chiral tribes. His message was simple but profound. Hope, potential, the future. "Your journey is just beginning," he spoke carefully, each word translated in real time. "The knowledge you've discovered is yours. Your civilization will grow, learn, explore." The translation device captured more than just words. It captured emotion, intention, a sense of profound possibility that transcended language. Tribal elders wept. Young Chiral scholars stood with a mixture of hope and heartbreak. Children who had learned about technology through the human's presence looked up with eyes filled with dreams of exploration. In mere months, they had transformed from isolated, conflicting tribes to a unified civilization on the brink of a technological renaissance. The spacecraft's engines began to warm up. A low humming filled the air, vibrating through the ground. Dust kicked up, creating a mystical atmosphere that felt both scientific and spiritual. Kro Lan, the young engineer who had first reverse-engineered their communication device, stood at the front of the crowd. In his hands, he held a complex piece of technology, a communication relay he and his team had developed, inspired by the humans' equipment. Their technological leap was unprecedented. Centuries of potential development had been compressed into months. Water purification systems, basic communication networks, medical understanding that would save thousands of lives, all because of an accidental landing. The ship's door began to close. Jaewon took one last look. Thousands of eyes watched. Thousands of hearts beat with a mixture of sadness and extraordinary hope. As the spacecraft lifted, something remarkable happened. The Chiral didn't just watch their gods leave. They stood tall, proud, ready. Technological workshops that didn't exist months ago now hummed with activity. Young scholars continued research. Engineers built upon the knowledge left behind. An entire civilization had been transformed. In the ship, the crew was silent. They knew they had done something extraordinary. Not through intention, but through simple existence. Daehyun checked the final launch coordinates. Sungmin monitored environmental systems. Hyejin looked out the window, watching the planet grow smaller. "We changed everything," she whispered. No, one disagreed. Months ago, this was just another exploration mission. Now it was the moment an entire civilization would mark as their true beginning. The spacecraft disappeared into the stars, leaving behind a world forever changed, and on the planet's surface the Chiral stood united, watching, learning, ready to write their own story, a story that began with 4 humans who never intended to be gods, but became something far more important: explorers. Inspiration, the first spark of a civilization's true potential,